Live on Facebook, on LinkedIn, and YouTube. This is Rabbi Chernitsky, the People's Rabbi, Director of Chabad Newfoundland, and the Friendship Circle, together with my wife Tuba. We're continuing today the laws and customs of Pesach, Passover, the Festival of Freedom, such a special holiday. So we finished the brief introduction yesterday. Today, very, very brief about kosher and things. We're not going to read the laws inside, as I said yesterday, but in general, it's recommended by the great rabbis that a person should have separate utensils for Pesach, for Passover, instead of having to do the koshering process, since you want to make sure that that it's done properly. It does take some effort, so ideally you should have separate utensils, separate vessels, pots, pans, plates, forks, knives, etc., etc., etc. As a rule, we cover all the counters. Depends what when in the kitchen we're preparing food. Depends what the counter is made of. If you have a chance to also make it kosher and then cover it, the custom of Chabad apparently is to kosherize the counters by pouring hot water. It's called idui, pouring boiling hot water, and then anyways it gets covered, and then you whatever it is. Some people put aluminum foil or garbage bags, or I think we used vapor barrier last year, which was pretty good. It's very thick. Whatever it is, that's for the counters. As a rule, metal could be kashered, made kosher again. Taking out, you could take out the chametz taste of leaven, which is a problem in Pesach and Passover. Same thing with stone. And so many types of counters today that you really need to speak to your local Orthodox rabbi. If you don't have one, you could send me an email, rabbinewfoundland@gmail.com. I'll try to answer as best as I can. Okay. There's different types of kashering. Making something kosher depends how the taste became absorbed. As the rule is, the Talmud says, the way it absorbs, that's the way it goes out, the taste, whether it's taste as kosher or taste as not kosher or taste of chametz. This is the general rule. Certain things you make kosher by putting them into a pot of boiling hot water. That's called hagola. Otherwise, there's something called libun when you use a blowtorch. There's libun kal and libun gamur. This is the more subtle type of libun, and this the complete libun. Depends on how the taste became absorbed. So again, any surface that you're going to be using for food, you want to cover, and if possible, also kosherize first and then cover, because on Pesach and Passover we're very, very strict, as we were studying together yesterday. Also, and of course, in Hasidic thoughts, in Kabbalah, Jewish mystical thought speaks about how Chametz represents Gaiva, haughtiness, and the Klipa and the forces of evil. So you really want to get rid of all the Chametz. You don't want to get any of that for the holiday, and that gives us a push, that gives us a boost, that the whole year we can withstand, we can fight against these negative tendencies. Okay, so of course you're going to be covering your table. Also, we're going to eat or prepare food. You're going to cover high chairs for babies, etc., etc., etc. Now, when it comes to ovens, though, I do want to say before we move on that a self-cleaning oven does do a proper kashering. So if you do the self-clean, you have to check with an Orthodox rabbi who's competent in the laws about how many hours exactly. But in our house, we run at the longest cycle. We do it twice to make sure everything gets burnt and chametz taste. And then you need to cover the door of the oven, because the door of the oven does not become as hot as the rest of the oven, which could be problematic. Okay, we'll continue now inside the text. Now, there's an idea that Talmud says that 30 days before a holiday, you should study the laws of the holiday. In the times of the temple, the early sages instituted that the rabbis should teach their students the laws of a holiday 30 days before, and there's a biblical source for this. And therefore, that means from already from Purim, which has happened, right, the 14th day of Adar, they should teach the laws of Pesach, because Pesach, Passover, is a month later. From the 5th of Iyar and so on, they should teach the laws of Shavuot, and the 14th of Elul should teach the laws of Sukkot, and so on and so forth. Even after the destruction of the temple, this decree was not cancelled. The concept of teaching the laws of the holiday for the holiday, and all the rabbis would teach the students the laws of the holiday 30 days before it, so they should be knowledgeable in the laws, what to do. In our generation, that the way information is transmitted is not just from teacher to student, but rather everything's written down in the book, then every person has a mitzvah, commandment, to study by himself or go to a class before the holidays. If you're listening to this, you're doing the right thing. Kudos to you. You get a free t-shirt. Today, you have a mitzvah to study from a book, all the relevant laws of the upcoming holiday. So you should be an expert and knowledgeable in what needs to be done. All 30 days before Pesach, it's proper to be careful and check everything that you're doing, that there should be no chametz that's going to get stuck in a way that you won't be able to easily remove it on the days, weeks, as you clean for Pesach. So you really have to start being more careful about all these things already from Purim. 30 days before the holiday, we are careful not to eat matzah. So there's different customs. Want to stop eating matzah. The Maker Hadin, by the letter of the law, is forbidden to eat matzah on the eve of Pesach, so that the taste of matzah should be fresh in our mouth. In Chabad, the custom is not to eat matzah 30 days before, so Purim's last day we eat matzah until the night of the Seder, Pesach. Others don't eat matzah for 2 weeks before Pesach, so each person has to honor their custom. It's an accepted custom in every Jewish community to collect from the members what's called ma'ois chitim, ma'ot chitim, which literally means coins, money for wheat, which is a special charity collection done for Pesach, for Passover needs, to give it to the poor people of the city so they could buy matzah. And if there's extra money, then they should give the money to the poor for the rest of the needs of the holiday. There's also wine that you need for the Seder, and meat, as it's a mitzvah to eat meat on a holiday, etc., etc., etc. And this is something that's collected today. If you would like to donate to the Ma'ois Chitim of Chabad in Newfoundland, it's not a requirement, but you could do so in this QR code that you see in the LinkedIn and YouTube video. If you don't see the QR code, the link is givenl.ca, www.givenl.ca. Okay. Now continuing on. The Lubavitcher Rebbe asks his followers, in particular somebody in a leadership position, to send for Pesach the people that he knows, his acquaintances, that they should send out a round handmade matzah, at very least enough for the Seder. And also, if you're organizing a public Seder, like a hotel, etc., you should make sure to have these matzahs. Why? Because according to the law, the letter of the law, the matzah that we need for the mitzvah of eating matzah, not the matzah that we eat when we're hungry and because we can't have bread, but when we are eating matzah the night of the Seder, the first Seder and the second Seder in the diaspora as well, we want to use the matzah. We need to use the matzah that was made by hand with the intent that they should be used for the mitzvah of remembering the exodus from Egypt. And as you can imagine, a machine cannot have intent, right? Machines don't have consciousness. Even ChatGPT doesn't have consciousness. So you can use a machine matzah, though it could be kosher for Passover, kosher le Pesach. It cannot be used for the Seder to do the mitzvah of eating matzah. You could eat it at the Seder as part of the meal, but not for the mitzvah of eating matzah. Okay. Now, the customs of the month of Nisan, right? So we know that the Hebrew month in which Passover takes place called Nisan. It's also my birthday, by the way, 29th of Nisan, so you could send me a gift 2 weeks after Pesach, 2 weeks after the beginning of Pesach. So the whole month of Nisan, we don't say Tachnu, the penitential prayers. And on Shabbat, you don't say the Avarachamim by Musaf or V'tzitkascha in Mincha. You're not allowed to fast the whole month of Nisan, but the firstborn do fast on the eve of Pesach. We're going to speak about that later. And the bride and groom, they do fast the day of their wedding, even if they get married on Rosh Chodesh at the beginning of the month of Nisan, but not if they get married on Isru Chag, the day after Passover ends. So usually there's no fasting on Rosh Chodesh, the beginning of the month, because it's a happy day, an auspicious day. But in the month of Nisan, since what happened is that the Rosh Chodesh Nisan, when the temple was established, it's a day of tiny tzaddikim. It's a day when righteous people fast. It's the day that Aaron's sons passed away. That Nadav and Abihu. So there is room to fast, but otherwise, on a Rosh Chodesh, the beginning of the month, any other month, you don't fast. Okay. There's a custom to read from Rosh Chodesh, the beginning of the month of Nisan, until the 13th day inclusive. The parts of the Torah speaks about the offerings brought to the temple by the different Nisim, the leaders of the tribes. So the 13th day, right? There's no 13th tribe, but we read from Zois Chanukas Mizbeach, and this is the dedication of the altar, until the words Kenasas and Menorah. This is how he made the menorah, and that corresponds to the tribe of Levi. Tribe of Levi or Levi, right? They don't count as one of the 12 tribes. So who are the 12? Well, it is replaced, right? Joseph, Yosef, his two sons, Ephraim and Menashe, are counted. So that's part of the blessing that his father Jacob gave him. So we take out Levi, and Yosef counts as 2, so you get 12 again. So what do you do for the tribe of Levi? You read that last part on the 13th day of Nisan, and then that's it. This is all printed in the Sidurim, where you could do a Google search for it. It's called the Nasi, or the portion of the Nasi, the daily Nasi. Nasi meaning a leader of a tribe. After you say the verses of the Torah, it's a special prayer that he writes and printed in the Sidurim. And even a Kohen and a Levi should say it. Why do we need to say that even a Kohen and a Levi should say it? Because if a person is a Kohen and a Levi, means that he comes from the tribe of Levi, right? The sons of Aaron and all the descendants forever are Kohanim, and the descendant from many other personal tribe of Levi is a Levi. So they know that they don't belong to the tribe of Shimon. They know they don't belong to the tribe of Reuven. So why should they say the parts that correspond to the princes? So Hasidic thought explains that this is something that relates to a spiritual state that goes beyond the different tribes. Okay. So one more section and we'll stop for today. The blessing on trees. This is something you cannot do everywhere in the world. Depends where you live. The Talmud says that a person goes out in the days of Nisan, the Hebrew month of Nisan, and he sees that trees are beginning to sprout, he needs to make a special blessing. Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam, shelo yichisar be'olam klum uvora boi brios toivos v'danos toivos ve'heinos b'hem b'nei adam. And that's only the first time he sees the tree that once a year. It's the first time you see it in the month of Nisan that year. The blessing is not said over fruit trees. Sorry, it's only said, scratch it. the blessing is only said for fruit trees and not for barren trees. And ideally, you should say the blessing on 2 trees, but after the fact, you could say the blessing on just 1 tree. People that live in bigger communities, usually there's somebody in the community that has some sort of tree, and then they announce it. The people could go there and make the blessing. You want to get as many blessings in, so you can to thank the Almighty God for everything He has given us. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Have a wonderful, wonderful day. Again, this is Rabbi Chernitsky, director of Chabad Newfoundland, together with my wife Tuba. Comments, questions, concerns, drop us a comment or send us an email, rabbinewfoundland@gmail.com. It's been a pleasure. Have a wonderful day. All the best.